respected teachers, and my dear students. The topic which I am going to cover is quite a lot, but I will try to make it as simple as possible and as clear as possible. And I will also invite all of you to interaction. If I am not very clear, you can stop me anywhere and post questions. I have no objection about it. I will not get disturbed. So, so this is the topic which has been allotted to me, and it covers quite a lot. Every word in this we can talk and discuss for hours, but then I have to do justice in about 45 minutes or so, which I will try to do. Now, what you see is the bird and the rhinos, which are some of the endangered species in India. We will be discussing about this a little later. Before going deep into the presentation, I just wanted to brush your information about a group, fundamental words like species. What is species? Species is a distinct group of animals or plants, both flora and fauna, that have common characteristics and breed within the species. Every word is very important to understand. Kindly try to go deep into the meaning of it. And again, there is another definition: a group of organisms with ability. That's another definition for the species. Let us make it clear in the beginning. So because we are going deep into the species, discussion on the species. And then about biodiversity, because that's also a part of the topic. So biodiversity means variability among living organisms from all sources. It is not only terrestrial source on which we are living, but in addition to that, terrestrial, marine and other aquatic ecosystem, entire ecosystem, it includes even the atmosphere. Ecosystem includes even the atmosphere, okay? Regarding the diversity within the species, between the species and the entire ecosystem. This is the definition given by none other than the Convention of Biological Diversity, that is CBD. Everybody knows this. CBD has given us this information, but then we are not going to. And biodiversity itself is of three types. One is species biodiversity, genetic biodiversity, and ecological or ecosystem biodiversity. But luckily, now I have been asked to talk only about the species biodiversity, so I will restrict myself to the species biodiversity. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is some of the species which are available on the earth, both on the earth and ocean and seas. See how diverse they are. How diverse. It's extremely complex as well as simple. If you look at it with simple eyes, yes, they look very simple. But then how they live together is a story by itself. Everybody, including the most intelligent species on this earth, that is human being, we have to understand how they live together. Okay? And this includes the terrestrial, ocean, and the lake, the Chilka Lake, the extreme bottom on the extreme right is the Chilka Lake biodiversity. Now, if you see, in the beginning itself, we will take a credit on this. The factors that impact the interspecies relationship within the biodiversity, we will discuss in the beginning itself, so that we will see, we will unravel and unfold the story one by one. Now, the most important is the energy by itself, energy flow within the ecosystem is the one which is a factor. We have the food chain and food web for the human use and for impact for the entire biodiversity's use. We have predator species population is outnumbering the feed species. This is the biggest challenge today. The feed species are becoming less and less, and the predator species are becoming more and more. We will do it when we see about the food web a little later. This is a very serious concern. We have to see how best we can strike a balance between the feed animals and the predator animals and the feed species. I will put it that way. Because human also is a species, and today human is the biggest predator. You know very well. Okay. Then
for mammals,
yeah, that's right. That makes a very fine splits of the entire thing. Okay. Then we have the fluctuations within the salinity, the TDS, total dissolved salts within the ocean, and the pH, the hydrogen ion concentration in the ocean water is they are extremely sensitive to the oceanic biodiversity and oceanic species, every species, and a lot of factors are dictating the salinity and the pH. These things keep changing, TDS as well as the pH of the ocean and sea water, and even the lake water for that matter, from season to season. If you measure the pH of the lake water in monsoon, it will be different from the summertime or even the winter time. So you can now imagine how difficult for the ocean and marine species to survive in the water. Well, they survive, so it's the biggest challenge. Then the most important of the topic of the day, that climate change triggered extreme weather conditions. This is really posing a biggest problem even to the highest, the most intelligent species, that is in the human beings. How many of us suffered? See, just floods have gone just recently. Even last week there have been floods in Chennai. So how much of it's all extreme weather conditions, and they are all triggered by the climate change. This is also a big problem. Then we have gene mutation. Professor 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 has already told about this. This is a real issue now. Gene mutation is playing a havoc on the planet Earth. We should be, sometime back, about 3-4 years back, I heard in the John Hopkins report somewhere. Can you believe there are 90, that time it was 99 genetic species within the human beings. 99. I was a little flabbergasted. 99 genetic variation within the human beings, unbelievable. That's the reason human behavioral science, if you see how the human behavior and how human how we transact with the nature changes quite a lot. So this gene mutation is a fact, and we have to be guarded against that. Then we have like anthropogenic causes, the man-made causes, and resultant hazards to the species. Every anthropogenic, every act of the human beings, that's why it is called anthropogenic. Anthropo means human, genic, generated, human created problems for the species. Yes, we not only create problem for ourselves, but we create to the species also. Okay. Some of them I will put up. The encroachment of species space depriving the habitats. Earlier speakers have already done that. You see, we have encroached almost all the available space on the planet Earth for our own habitat. Are we thinking, when we are constructing a house, are we thinking how we are going to protect the wildlife and all that? No. Okay. Then the species-human conflict. We have, there are very good digital images available, all those things, we can see the bacteria and pathogens of humans affecting the species. The bacteria and pathogens created by the human beings. COVID is a recent memory. In addition to COVID, which is a virus, there are a lot of bacteria which are created continuously by the human beings. They are also causing problems. We have depriving the resource support to the species. Resource available within the planet Earth, including the atmosphere, is only limited, including the oxygen. If you take oxygen, which we breathe, as a resource, potential resource, that also is deprived by the human beings to the species. Okay, these are the major things I am outlining, and major modification in the land use and biomes. Of course, this we can talk the entire day, land use and biomes. Biomes by itself is a very big subject, I am not going into that. But then the major alteration within the land use is a fact. If you just recollect the hydra aspect, which is in discussion now. Okay. Now, there are estimated 7.77 million animal species on the earth. Out of this, about 1.5 million animal species are described already. They are already available, descriptions are available. And 1.05 million are insects alone. Can you imagine? 1.05 million are insects. And 85,000 are mollusks of marshes and ocean atmosphere. Then we have about 65,000 vertebrates, and right from planktons to whales, blue whales, we have 7.7 million animal species. Okay, and then when you come to the plant species, there are about 3,74,000. These are I have given the screenshot from the research paper, the number of known plant species in the world and annual increase by Martin Christophaus and James Baig in the Phytotaxa. It's a recent publication, 2006. It's not very recent, but then 2016. This is in that they have given 3,74,000 species, including herbs, shrubs, trees, climbers, and creepers. There are 3,88,312 vascular plants alone. Most of them are vascular plants, which have a system on its own. Then about 2,95,000 odd flowering plants like angiosperms, monocots, dicots, and all those things. And there are smaller groups of algae and so on and so forth. I am not going very much into detail. I am just giving the enormity of the species biodiversity. That's what I wanted to impress upon you. That's all, nothing more. Well, I am sharing some of the recent screenshots. Please hold your breath, ladies and gentlemen. Nearly 40% plant species are very rare and vulnerable to climate change. Can you imagine 40%? I have given the screenshot. It is not from me, it is from the fact. And then another screenshot. It gives 16 of the world's most endangered animals in 2024. This is just this is most recent information. They have already identified 16 endangered species. Some of them are really, it will disturb us. Yes, definitely. If we hear that, we will come to that later. What I am trying to tell is there are species of plants and animals identified as rare, endangered and threatened, that is RET. Now today in the entire species, that RET is a very, very famous word. RET means rare, endangered and threatened. You should be very familiar. The most important thing is this trend has to be arrested immediately. If you really want to, if you wish to, sort of give some ecosystem support, this has to be arrested. Becoming RET. Many of the species becoming RET has to be arrested. Now, a few RET global species, animal species, International Union of Conservation of Nature says 4,000 species are critically endangered, meaning they face very severe threats that could soon become extinct in the world. 4,000. That is the enormity of the rare endangered species. This includes 16 examples of the planet's most endangered animals like birds, fish, and reptiles to marine and mammals, like rhinos, leopards, orangutans, gorillas, elephant, both African and Asian types, elephants, they are endangered. We have savannas, whales, pangolins, sharks, box turtles, lemurs, macaws, sloths, sloth bear, then butterflies, quite a lot of butterflies. Professor 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 has already told, butterflies are endangered now. They are really, because we use so much of pesticides to do away with the, the atmospheric pests. So in the process, even the butterflies are also getting killed. Then we have worms. Yes, a few thousands of worms are getting extinct. And mind you, worms are the most important fertile agents for the fertility of the farmlands. If they are getting killed this way, I don't know how to describe you more than this. Then the most important is, if you see the decomposer, detritus creating decomposers of the food chain, they are also getting, because like leaves fall as they get decomposed on the soil, and that becomes food again to the entire plant species. They are getting affected. Then regarding the plant species, a dozen plants and just 3 crops are used to just satisfy. Believe me, the entire globe today uses only about 3 to 4 type of crops for 4 billion people. Relying on a few crops of feed, global population accounts for loss of about 79% of the global farmland. These facts and figures are somewhat disturbing, but then I'm not here to, I want to only create an awareness and alertness in you, not to create a panic. My idea is not to create a panic, ladies and gentlemen. It's only to create an awareness so that we become, we can give interventions wherever possible and whatever possible from our level. Then lot of orchids, cycads, and so on and so forth. You can see, you can read them. I am not a botanist. I apologize for that. There are quite a few plants which are becoming rare, endangered. Now, you know about the ecosystem. We have biotic components and abiotic components. And then what exactly happens when we disturb the species? We will discuss on that. The most important energy, sunlight is the biggest and fundamental energy. The early morning when we get up, just imagine if you don't see the sunlight, the entire day becomes very moody and all this. You see, the sunlight is the most fundamental of the energy. That sunlight is used by the chlorophyll bearing plants, use the soil water and produce the glucose, the fundamental form of glucose, fructose, or you can call it water, different types of glucose. And you can see a set of things which they are stored, the glucose. Now, what happens is the intervention of the human beings today is that we think any green belt is a waste belt. Okay, let me remove that green belt and make a house over that. What do you do in that process? You are intervening in the preparation of glucose by the producers. Like producers, biotic component, they are producers consumers and decomposers. We are the biggest consumers. The producer's job is stopped when we are encroaching somebody else's land. Please remember that. So we have to create as much green area as possible. We'll come to that a little later. And then this flow, this energy, which is converted into glucose, is transmitted from the plants to the animal kingdom. This is how it happens. Ecosystem needs energy and energy flow. These energy sources are made up of the ecosystem, then autotrophs and heterotrophs and decomposers are the three important parts of the biotic. We have to see that they thrive. Otherwise, our life will be in peril, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Now, human species has a special role in striking this balance. If we are not striking this balance, who else will do that? I have kept one food web. You can see that the producer plant is available. You can see the plant, and then the several food chains are available, and the entire chains become a very big food web. Ladies and gentlemen, just imagine if one of the species within the chain or web is becoming extinct or endangered. What will be the result? That means the food chain will be cut. The transformation, the transforming of the energy flow will be cut. Total energy flow from the plants to the higher, the apex consumer, that is the man, will be completely cut. So is it not fair on our part to think in these terms, not to protect the species? You see, every species in that food web and food chain is important. If we disturb any of this food web and food chain, please remember that our life is at peril, not their life, because the food chain will be cut and the food will not be available to the apex consumer, that is man himself. Okay, the interspecies relationship within the biodiversity have to be sustained for autotrophs. That's what I have written on the top left. Autotrophs and the producer activity. We should never disturb any producer, that is the plants. Plant species should never be made to suffer. There should be continuous flow of production from the producers. Otherwise, again, it's going to be a total imbalance. Then balancing consumption and by the heterotrophs. We are, including us, we are the heterotrophs. We have to balance the consumption by the heterotrophs. If not, we, who else will control? Then facilitate the energy production. How do we facilitate? By creating more green belts, more farmlands, more energy producers, supporting more energy producers and all that. Then preservation of the energy number. Energy number I have given on the top. You can see the energy number. The producers, the plants make, if the plants make about 1000 kg, by the time it reaches the apex consumer, we require only about 1 kg of the production. So this energy number and energy flow has to be maintained absolutely without any interruption. Again, it's not going. These are the most fundamental things. Before we talk about the climate change and other things, we need to understand this, because if we do not understand these fundamental things, we are not going to answer very advanced things like how the climate change and all these things. Okay, I will stop at this. Now, the ecosystem, which we call as one ecosystem, is not a single. You have seen there are so many aspects in that. The most important thing is it is the interaction between the species is very important. If energy and flow are not balanced and monitored, the autotrophs or producers' plants will be endangered and threatened. and the largest consumer, that is the humans, have a big role in maintaining the balance of the food web and interspecies interaction. Because if the interspecies interaction is not maintained, if you recollect the previous one, the energy, food chain and food web will be disturbed, and then there will be intervention in our not getting the energy flow. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, human beings as apex consumer need to choose healthy life and food styles for the balance. How do we do that? Choose healthy food habits. Choose healthy life habits. That is sufficient. Okay. Now, just to show this, I have just given the you can see the global population is depending on a lot of food web animals. Imagine the science for supporting these animals. You can imagine how much of primary producers, that the plants will be required. Are we giving that? I doubt very much. Interspecies struggle for survival and growth in number is challenged now. Okay. Interspecies struggle always lead to threats in the biodiversity, endangering the species and the biodiversity loss. Both are influenced by the anthropogenic causes globally. I am not talking about only in India, it is globally, it affects globally, more so in populous country like India. Species intervention, a special intervention to preserve and restore the species are needed in our country. Why? Because you can see that histogram. India is having 2.4% of global area, and it is supporting 17.7% of global population. It's a totally lopsided. Whereas when we come to the rest of the world, 97.6% of the global area is supporting only about 82.3% of the global population. So there is totally lopsided population density in India. In a very small area, we have to support more. So therefore, for India, country like India, we have got special responsibility to see that the species do not die very much. How do we do that? By not constructing smart cities like that. You see, most of the areas which you are seeing, that Meghalaya, Aizawl in Mizoram, and Manipur, Imphal, all Nagaland, they are all very, very fragile, environmentally sensitive areas. That is the hotspots. I will come to know. I will deal with hotspot a little later. They are environmentally highly sensitive. If we are constructing smart cities in these areas, you can imagine. Yeah. Okay. Right. You can see what will be the result. We should see that this type of unregulated growth does not take place. And major reasons for the stress on biodiversity and hotspot are major alteration in the land use and land cover of the continents in favor of agriculture, urban and rural development. Landfills like what you are seeing on that side, most of the area is used as a dumping yard, which we in a very polished way we call them as landfills. They are nothing but dump yards. We call them as landfills. And then marsh is the water-rich areas. They are also under threat, but we are encroaching them also. We have industries including the power stations, economic and special SEZ corridors within these areas, geotechnical projects like dams, bundled water bodies and all that, tackle waters like landslides we have to do, then mining, lifestyle like farm areas and all that we are constructing in these sensitive zones, which should not be there. Then we have to have disappearance of water bodies and marshes, widespread carnivorous habit of the humans. This is causing a real concern. depriving their feed animals to the wildlife. This is a real issue. Creation and spread of pathogens like bacteria, virus, and all that harmful to the animal life. Now you can see in the COVID year 2020, more than 350 animals, elephants, African elephants, perished in Botswana, 𝗂𝗏𝗏 Delta, and later on it was known to be bacteria, human-derived bacteria. Human-derived bacteria killed 350 beautiful animals like African elephants. And in the same year, the 17 million minks were killed in Denmark. Minks are generally used for mink coat and other things. A lot of warm clothing. They have been culled because of some very mysterious type of virus they have made. Okay. Now, I am not going very deep into that gene mutation because there is already we are running short of time. But gene mutation is really a cause. Gene mutation alters the environment and ecosystem, and alterations in environment and ecosystem promotes gene mutation. Either way, gene mutations alters the ecosystem and ecosystem alters the gene mutation, both. So therefore, we should not think about gene mutation in any form, let it be food material or cotton or anything. Never think of any gene mutation. Then interspecies interaction is a cause for gene mutation and ecosystem changes. As we have seen, you can see if the base pairs are disturbed within the chromosomes, gene mutation takes place. So therefore, we have to see that such misadventures are not done in the future. Then we have wildlife-human conflict in India. We are abusing some of the elephants. You see how the elephants are abused. Is it necessary to climb down to the elephants and go for a round? No, it's an abuse. Okay, and because of that, you can see how the wildlife is running helter-skelter. Rhinos, which are under threat, it is an endangered species now, if you recollect my previous slide. Now, you have heard about Eastern Ghats from 𝗏𝗏𝗏 garu, but you see what is happening in the Western Ghats. Western Ghats, Norway, it is also, see, most of the area is commercially, the land use of Western Ghats is commercially converted into tea garden and coffee garden and all that. And now, luckily, the mining project in the Western Ghats was stopped by the 𝗏𝗏𝗏 committee. So, to a large extent, they have stopped the ecosystem getting disturbed in the Western Ghats. Yes, to Western Ghats, but please remember, Western Ghats is a very environmentally fragile area. We have brush fires lost out. Now, in addition to that, in recent years, we see this warfare. In the warfare, how much of species are getting lost, both plants and animals. Now, this is the global map of the hotspots. All the red colored areas, they are all the hotspots. The good news is about 30% of the species have been saved. 30%. 70% of the species, both plants and animals, we have already lost from the gray areas of the globe. Only 30% of the remaining species are concentrated in the red areas. But the bad news is, even these red marked areas are also under threat. That's really, that's hotspots themselves are under threat. We have to see that anthropogenic influence causes a major species reduction and hotspot shrinkage. So we should see that the hotspots are really preserved. At least leave them alone. Instead of going there and completely, spoiling the atmosphere there, we should see that they are protected. Now, the Kaziranga, for example, you have seen, originally that much of the area was Kaziranga. Today, how much of land use have been changed. You can see so many villages have come there. Only the area in the circle is the Kaziranga National Park today. You can see how much of pressure, stress we are creating on the wildlife. So as a result, we have marshes are completely lost in the Kaziranga. The rhinos, you can see how they are in the flood. In the summer, there is no water to drink, and in the winter, they are getting drowned. This is a pathetic condition of the wildlife we are leading to. Now, as though it is not sufficient, we have created electrical corridors, electrical, wires and all those things, so that the wildlife does not come into the human territory. So that is also causing a lot of problem. Now, extreme weather conditions, these things are very familiar. These are all climate change triggered completely. You can see the huge block of ice from Antarctica getting detached from the sheet of ice, and then suddenly it comes into the ocean. As a result, the TDS and the pH of the ocean water will change, and it is going to cause a lot of perishing in the marine ecosystem. Yeah, and we have a lot of brush fires happening, which again poses a lot of problem to the wildlife and the plants. Now, many people may think that climate change is only a fairy tale. No. You can see how our own Gangotri glacier in the year 1780, it was going to the extremely northwestern part of it. Today, the Gangotri glacier, which we consider very holy, from where our Ganga river starts. It starts, and then through Bhagirathi river, the Gangotri glaciers melt and join the Ganga river. Now you can see how much of it has retreated in the year 2001. This is 2001, but subsequently this has not been updated. I will look for update. So climate warming is real, and climate change also is real. There is no two-way thoughts about it actually. How we are going to tackle is in our, ingenious ways. Now this is my last slide. You can see the stress on the marine. We think that we are creating only on the land. No, it is not land. The marine biodiversity is much more under stress. Much more. Just imagine the oil spill happening there. What is happening in the South China Sea? Today, South China Sea is most, militarized part of the sea. So, it is not only on the land, even on the oceans and seas also, we have done quite a lot of things which we are not supposed to do. So, I only say that we should, ladies and gentlemen, we should try to improve our own transactions with the nature. Okay? You can see the victims of the oil spill, very poor. They will not, at least the human beings can express ourselves. But the birds, very pathetic birds, they are unable to do anything. They have to bear the brunt. So now you can ask me, okay, now you have told me so many things. What are the solutions? Yes, definitely there are solutions to that. Measures to protect the species, restore and preserve the species biodiversity in house. So come whatever may, how we are doing it is not, the result is more important than the means. Do anything possible and everything possible to protect and restore the species. If we can give up one time non-vegetarian food, yes, that itself gives one time, once in a week. The more, the better. Okay, try to preserve the species. Arrest the emissions into the atmosphere to prevent warming as per the COP21. Today we are at the threshold of COP29, but COP21, which happened in Paris in 2015, lot of fantastic decisions were taken but they have not been implemented. Sir, I don't think many of the decisions were. So, if we are able to, in letter and spirit, implement those decisions in 2015, I think most of our species will be revived. Then invest in carbon sequestration technologies to remove carbon from atmosphere and deposit in the reservoirs to sustain the ecosystem and the photosynthesis. Because you see, carbon is very much required for the photosynthesis. So therefore, technologies are not only fairy tales. Technologies have to be used for the human development. Use them. Carbon sequestration technologies are available now. They take the carbon dioxide, carbon from the atmosphere and dump it on the on the terrestrial areas, and then thereby they create the greenery around the territorial areas. So do that. Then we have enhanced the forest cover, dense greenery, support the proliferation of the indigenous flora, whatever is available in the indigenous. You don't have to import species from other places. No, not necessary. Within our area, whatever is available, you protect them. That is sufficient. That itself is an ecosystem service you are creating. Cut down the personal carbon footprints, walk as much as possible, avoid air travels as much as possible, so on and so forth. Personal, I am not talking about the carbon footprint. Personal, if you are able to do it personal level, you are contributing to the society. Preserve the flora and faunal species in all biomes and ecosystems. Protect the soil. You have heard about that. Soil is an important part of the ecosystem. If soil is affected, everything is affected. Protect the soil. Marshes. Marshes means wetlands. Technically, marshes are nothing but wetlands. Wherever some wetness is available, they are called wetlands. Then we have rivers and natural water bodies. Ladies and gentlemen, with these last 3 small tips to you, I will complete my day. Lead a lifestyle that produces minimum solid waste. Minimum solid. It is not possible to lead without minimum solid waste. That itself will be a very big service to the ecosystem. Now what happens is, suppose we are not able to cook at home. Immediately you call up Zomato or who is there, Swiggy or something, and then what happens? So much of packing material is coming. So avoid that. You have to transact ethically with nature, plants and animals, with compassion and mercy. That itself is a very good. And restore the dignity of the species. See, in every species, you have seen in the food chain and food web, every species has a role in the society, in the role in the ecosystem. If we disturb them, that's all. So, use them with dignity and mercy. That itself is sufficient. So, thank you very much for giving a personal attention.